I just pick it up and run with it. We just see them, and they seem to represent something. Most of them are really awfully shabby when you come to think of it, but Katharine Hepburn, of course, is beyond anything you could imagine.
What do you mean by shabby?
Well, you know, they're sort of silly personas grafted onto our psyche, played across the papers for a few weeks or a few months or a few years, and there's really nothing behind them. They're cardboard cutouts.
How do you determine that you're going because you read about it, I suppose, in the Post or Newsday?
Well, sure, you read about it in all the gossip columns, you hear about it or something like that, or you hear Princess Grace is in town and she'll be attending this. I say, oh, I want to see Princess Grace, so I'd go. Or
you had a wonderful conversation with her once, didn't you?
Wonderful talk. We had a wonderful talk.
That's an interesting story. You might want to tell it.
Sure. It was, she used to come into town and stay with a very good friend of hers, a woman named Vera Maxwell, who had an apartment on Park Avenue, and in the back she kept like a little mini apartment where Princess Grace would stay. It was especially for hers. And one of the things that people do in New York is they go on things called house tours, in which a charity will get 5 or 6 rich people to open up their houses to people who tour through them for $50 or $100. And they go from one to another and they look at them. And a friend of mine went on a house tour. In fact, she crashed the house tour. And at Vera Maxwell's house, she got into the back apartment. They said, and this is where Princess Grace stays. And there was all sort of Grace memorabilia around. And she immediately ran to look at the telephone, and they had the private telephone number on there, which she memorized, ran downstairs and called me to tell me. The next time that Princess Grace was in town, I gave her a call. And I told her that I was a friend of her son, Prince Albert, who was then a student at Amherst. And I know a great deal about that family from having read about them for years. I know them pretty much, you could say, intimately. And in fact, there are certain things about that family that I know more about them than they know about themselves. So she and I had a wonderful talk about Albert, about the whole family, about what was going on. And since I also knew her itinerary in New York, we were able to discuss that. And I told her I'd probably see her at the ballet the next night. And I did, but I didn't want to push it, so I didn't introduce myself to her. I felt, she's busy and she's been plagued by me enough. But I had a very nice conversation and she really enjoyed it. I can't imagine what she must have thought when Albert said, I don't know anybody by that name. But, what can you do?
And so this film, which is played at the Lincoln Center, is now going to be played at the Film Festival in California.
Los Angeles Film Festival, American Film Institute. Very exciting. My Hollywood debut, I call it.
And basically this film tells about all of your great adventures in potty crashing. And how did it come to be? How did you get together with the producers?
They're a wonderful couple, Andy Behar and Sarah Sackner, who used to live upstairs from me in my loft in New York. It's a loft building with about 10 lofts in it, and we're all very close, and we all know each other and keep each other's keys and everything like that. And we became very good friends after, when they moved in. And they're filmmakers, and they made various movies, and they used my paintings in one of the movies they made, which was called TV Dad, which got a lot of attention and brought them to California to work on movies out there. And I used to tell them stories and tell them, well, I'm going here tonight, and I'm going to this particular place, and I'm going to a party at the Plaza tonight, or I caused an incredible ruckus at a party at this, I told them about a party which I actually, this wasn't in the movie, it was cut out from the movie because it sounded too raucous. I once caused a stampede at the Plaza Hotel by imitating Ethel Merman in a corridor. She was supposed to be at the party, and when I did the imitation, suddenly I heard this huge hubbub in the party saying, she's here, she's coming, just by doing a little Ethel Merman imitation out in the corridor. And they were just thrilled by it. They said, this has got to be a movie, this has got to be a movie. And I kept saying, yeah, wait a while, we'll talk about it.
So basically what you do is you get in by giving a false name or blending with the crowd?
False name, blending with the crowd. Sometimes I'd have people posing as paparazzi or actual paparazzi who are my friends. So when it comes to the checkpoint where they're checking very, very carefully, they'll start flashing like 10 or 12 flash pictures of me, and the people in security go, oh my God, he's here, not knowing who it is, but obviously I was somebody very important that they didn't recognize. Go right this way, that kind of thing.
Well, I would think with all the rave reviews, and I have some of them here, I think that maybe your cover has been blown. Just looking at these here, the Hollywood Reporter says Richard Osterweil is an enthralling charmer. Although he may never attain the fame of those he so unabashedly adores, the man who crashed Andy Warhol's funeral will certainly get at least his 15 minutes in the limelight. And here's a review that appeared in the New York Post giving the film 3.5 stars that said that this film will have the whole town talking by tomorrow morning. And Rex Reed raved about you, said there are a million stories in the Naked City, and Richard Osterweil has lived at least half of them. It just seems to me that you have blown your cover, as Gene Seymour said in Newsday. What's going to happen now that you've blown your cover? Are you still going to be able to crash into the parties?
I haven't really wanted to go anyplace in a long time.
Why is that?
Well, there's not that much interesting anymore. I mean, the interesting thing for me in my life is to sit home and paint. That's what I've wanted to do forever, and that's what I do. And basically, I'm invited places now. I'm actually invited the sort of places that I used to be. Over the years, I've made friends with people who want me to go to these places. And I have to say, most of these events, if you're invited, they're incredibly dreary and boring. It's just basically a bunch of silly old people, silly old rich people sitting around and eating. And I'd rather be with my own friends, or I'd rather be home painting. The excitement was in the getting in. Once you're there, it's sort of a drag, unless they give out free gifts.
And food.
And food.
And you talk a lot about food.
Yes, I was
in the course
encouraged to
of the
talk
film.
about. I was encouraged by the filmmakers. If I was telling a story, they'd suddenly yell over to me, "Talk about the food." And since I have great recall of such things, I would just say, "Well, we had this and this and this," and it was, if you live in New York as an artist, you really have to live on a very small budget, and I have basically, at the moment, a $7 a day budget, but in the past it was $6 and $5 and $4, keeping up with inflation at the time. And you read about these wonderful meals, and you'd say, how great, these, I'd love to try it. I remember one dinner I went to, because I read that the main course was going to be gravlax. I said, oh, great, I've always wanted to try it. It sounds like such a wonderful thing. So I went, elaborate ritual to get in with a friend. We're sitting down, a whole story. And they served it. I said, it's lox. What's the big deal?
But it's not only food, and it's not only parties that you go to, because as the film says so eloquently, you also take a lot of pleasure in going to funerals of famous people.
Yes.
And we have a film clip, which we're going to show right now, which tells a little bit about that. So why don't we just look at that film right now?
Okay.
And that's the story of Richard Osterweil and funerals. We're talking today with Richard Osterweil, who is an artist and a party crasher, and now we know also a funeral crasher. And he is the star and subject of a documentary film that has received rave reviews called Painting the Town. Well, what is this drive that takes you to funerals, Richard? What is the fascination?
Well, it's not ghoulish. It has nothing to do with any sort of an interest in death or anything like that. In fact, it's very much contrary to that. I'm interested in these particular funerals and memorials as marking a period in history, absorbing a period in history. I read recently a biography of Truman Capote, and in it were mentions and descriptions of 7 or 8 people whose funerals I had attended. And at these events, people tell very unusual stories. They sort of come out of the woodwork, people from the long, distant past, and you feel as if you've captured a certain portion of the past of the person who has died. And it's a very interesting kind of thing to go to. It's the best entertainment in New York, believe me. The best.
A lot of people wouldn't think that it's entertaining to go to funerals.
They've never been to the good ones.
Okay.
They haven't been to the good ones. Once you've been to the good ones, there's really no event that can compare. Also, it's only going to happen once per person.
And it's a good funeral if you're not personally involved, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you don't want anybody to die, of course. You certainly don't want anyone to die. But once they're dead, you might as well enjoy the funeral.
Is it the people who are there, the glamorous people, the well-known people?
Incredible celebrities come out of the woodwork. You would not believe how interesting the people are when you get to these events. And you're all there. You're all mourners together. So it's not as if they're separated. You just, I remember going to Averill Harriman's. We got in, and I said to them at the door of St. Thomas's, they said to me, I was with 2 friends. They said, yes. I said, I'm a friend of Pamela's, Pamela Harriman, of course. And he said to the usher, who was Arthur Schlesinger, Jr., take him to the VIP section. I just was led down the aisle. We had a great time. Sat with Ted Kennedy. Very, very nice.
Do you dress differently when you go to funerals?
I have a special funeral outfit.
And what does that consist of?
Dark jacket, white shirt, funeral tie. It's a uniform, a funeral uniform.
Now, you said that you're not crashing as many parties. You're being invited to many, and you are devoting your time to painting. And we should talk a little bit about your painting.
Sure.
Have you gone through different phases in the years that you've been painting? And do you consider yourself to be a successful painter?
No, I am almost completely unsuccessful, which hasn't really ever mattered to me because I've always been painting exactly what I wanted all the time, devoting all my time to it, and I always figured things would happen eventually. I'm not painting things that are currently in vogue. I'm not painting according to any particular school that is considered what is being done today. I'm painting according to what I want to paint, and that has not been easy because no one's been interested in it, but I think it's going to, in the long run, prove to be the best thing of all.
So you go through different phases, actually. Why don't we look at some of your paintings now and talk about them a little bit?
Sure.
What phase do you want to discuss first?
Sure. It's not so much phases. I paint in series. About 8 or 9 or 10 different series over the past 18 years since I've came to New York in 1974. And I'll sometimes drop a series for 5 years and then pick it up with new variations years later.
So you have a Russian series?
I have a Russian series.
And what does this painting show?
This is a painting based on, the Russian series are based on old photographs of the Russian imperial family, the Tsar and his family, caught spontaneously in snapshots from, say, the 1890s to 1917. And I find them very inspiring and very moving in that they capture a period of time with great spontaneity. And for me, to capture them in paint is to evoke this period of time, evoke this kind of a feeling, which current photographs and photographs of people living today just don't seem to quite have. And this one is of the Tsarevich, the Tsar's son, Alexei, a triptych basically of him playing in the snow. So it's a photographic type of thing. Snap, 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 looking at a snowdrift, digging in the snow, playing behind a big snowball.
How many are in the series?
Oh, at least 50 or 80. And we're having a show of it, I believe, in the fall, sponsored by the Prince and Princess Romanov, the great-nephew of the Tsar and his family, and it looks like we may be doing something in coordination with the Russian consulate. It may be held at the Russian embassy or the Russian consulate, having the actual family sponsor it because they're very interested in the paintings. It's very exciting.
Let's talk about the the next series, which is artists in their homes or
Artists in their studios.
in their studios.
I love, and it used to be a very traditional kind of painting of artist studios or collector studios within which there'd be many small copies of the artist involved.
Mm-hmm.
And since I taught myself to paint by copying, this is an extended homage to the art of copying. So I copy in miniature many small paintings. This one in particular is a painting of the studio of Edouard Manet towards the end of his life, in which I place him in a studio, basically a fabricated studio. It was based on photographs of where he painted, and the painting, the pose of Manet himself, is from a Degas painting of Manet in that pose. So it's very much art historical and paintings within paintings. And on the wall are many paintings, 12 or 14 paintings, perfect little copies of Manet's, including the group of paintings he did towards the end of his life, still lifes, 16 exquisite still lifes. When he was dying, all he had energy for were small paintings of bouquets of flowers given to him by friends, and they were the most beautiful, poetical, exquisite paintings of all time, at least of that time. And I just captured him in the studio with those paintings. Very exciting painting for me.
And another series that we have here today is one of a favorite subject of yours. And why don't we talk a little bit about her and the paintings that you've done?
Sure. Towards the end of the late 70s, I became aware of this extremely beautiful woman I used to see at events, at the ballet, at the theater, and I was just completely dazzled by her. A woman named Judy Peabody, who's a very beautiful woman who does a lot of social work in New York and is a great philanthropist and is basically just a magnificent person. And I sort of looked at her from afar, and I said, that's someone I want to paint. But I was too shy to introduce myself to her. So I started to do paintings of her based on historical modes. And I eventually got to know her, and she became as beautiful as she is as a creature. She's even more beautiful as a human being. We became very good friends.
You spend a lot of time in the film talking about her. As a matter of fact, at the screening which we attended, she was there in the audience.
Sure, she was there. She loves the movie. Who wouldn't love a movie which proclaims that, here she is, the goddess of our times?
And you have painted her hundreds of times?
No, I'd say I painted her about 20 different poses. As a Matisse, as a Modigliani, which I call Giudigliani. I painted her as an Ingres, as a David, as a Sargent. I painted her in all sorts of art historical poses. Also as herself a couple of times as well, with applied jewels.
Yes, and the painting that we have here today has the applied jewels on it.
This is a view, right, a view of Judy's face from the side, with jewels on, and in the top corner is a tiny little version of Judy, just put up as a sort of like an addendum up there. I think of it almost as, the Greek myth in which Athena emerged out of she was like the ear of Zeus. Well, this is just sort of like an homage to that, sort of like the tiny Judy emerging from the large Judy's hair.
And, what's the future hold for you? More painting? More different types of art?
Well,
do you feel as if now that you are a media star that it's going to help sell your paintings?
Well, I'll give you an example. The biggest night of my life was this past Friday, when my movie opened, and I had 600 people there and these huge reviews. And I got home, and I painted for 2 hours. To me, that's what it's all about. That's what I've been doing for many, many years. And I have, in my mind, I have an entire series of paintings right through the beginning of the next century. All of them just waiting to be done. I'd love to be more successful. But since I've been extremely happy without being successful, I'm prepared for any eventuality. I would love to be able to make my living selling paintings. Mm-hmm. I don't mean by that a great deal. I don't think I've ever made over $15,000 a year in my life, so my goals are not grandiose. I'd like to have a very nice little living painting full-time.
And do you think that this film will help that happen?
Well, sure. First of all, I think I'm going to make enough money from the film I think things are going to happen. Maybe not, but also I think things are going to happen with paintings. It's the time in life for me that things should happen. It's been a long time. I'm ready for it. And we'll go for it. Anything that happens, I'm quite content with. I'd also be quite content if nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. And let's get back to the main thrust of the film, which is party crashing. You say that you don't crash parties, but you do get a lot, invited to quite a few of them.
I get invited to a lot of places. If an opportunity came up, if there was something I really wanted to go to, I'd do it. I would crash the party. I'd think of a way to do it, a persona to take on, and I would do it. But there's not all that much I really want to do. But if something came up special, I would go for it.
Have you made any close friends of well-known personalities as a result of your party going?
No, I think I'm probably the best known personality I know. But I do tend to get invited places because people they just seem to want me there. I'm different from the people they usually would find. And I am invited places. People will say, you should invite Richard, he's interesting. So I go occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't go to too many things because it interferes with the painting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll go to a few events, but somebody called me recently. She wanted to organize a big party for me in a discotheque, and I said, are you kidding? I would never go to a discotheque, and I would never subject my friends to it. Who wants to go to a place like that? How horrible. The first time the movie had been seen by me only lying on the floor of my apartment in various versions. The first time I actually saw it with people, Gloria Vanderbilt gave a dinner party to which she invited me, Judy.
I have to interrupt you because we've run out of time, so
Okay.
we're going to let Gloria Vanderbilt wait,
Let her wait
until the next program.
All right, good.
And today we've been talking to Richard Osterweil, a painter, a party crasher, funeral goer, sometime cab driver, a coat room attendant, and star of the film Painting the Town. I'm Norman Liss. Thanks for joining us, and have a lot of fun.